And welcome back to Game Escape, here with part 2 of our look at Mahjong video games. In part 1, we dealt with the rules and kind of had a little tutorial in the context of Yakuza 4, and we're going to look at some more Mahjong games out there. And we're going to start with really two games from my favorite series, which is Pro Mahjong Kawaman by Athena. And this, to me, is one of the most challenging and realistic Mahjong simulators. I picked this up on eBay kind of on a whim. It may have actually been in a lot, and this was the game that kind of got me into Mahjong, which, incidentally, I don't recommend because it is very, very tough. But once you know the rules, once you're confident with Mahjong, this series is definitely one you want to check out. I think it kind of prides itself on being the definitive Mahjong simulator, as far as I understand it. And it's kind of like, you know, the Madden of Mahjong games. It seems like for a while there in the early to mid 90s, even into the late 90s, there were sort of yearly iterations. And the CPU opponents in this game are incredibly skilled, and they get better as you get better, which means that each time you play, it's a little bit harder, and winning hands and games is incredibly rewarding. We're looking at Pro Mahjong Kawaman S here for the Sega Saturn, which is a terrific version. There were PlayStation 1 versions of this. Pro Mahjong Kawaman Plus comes to mind as probably being the best one on that system. Very, very similar. And you can also kind of get the same experience from the Super Famicom version of Mahjong Pro Kawaman 3. So definitely check this out. You can find these for, you know, anywhere from $3 to $10 for really the Saturn, the PlayStation 1, and the Super Famicom games. Super Famicom games might actually be a little bit cheaper, but just incredibly challenging, and really a series you want to look at after you're a little bit more familiar with the rules and have some confidence in arranging your hand as quickly as possible and reading your opponent's discards. So the next game in the Pro Mahjong Kawaman series is Pro Mahjong Kawaman DX2, the 4th Mondo 21 Cup competition. And this, I believe, is the last of the Pro Kawaman games to appear on a console. This is for the PlayStation 2, and it's the same concept here. You're picking from real Pro Mahjong players from the Japanese Professional Mahjong League. Of course, there is one. But this game, as challenging as the other entries in the series were, this one is just a level beyond. The CPU skill here is absolutely incredible. It is the most challenging Mahjong game that I own, and it's tweaked in such a way that the challenge is almost extreme here. I mentioned in part 1 that Mahjong video games tend to each have a different focus on the game and maybe some even different objectives. I mean, the rules are the same, but the developers tend to play around with this idea of focus. And here, the focus is on CPU players who will actually compile cheap, quick hands to prevent you from maximizing and assembling high-value hands that you might be putting together in the course of a game. So it is almost relentless in doing this. And the idea is that you actually have to take on this strategy yourself, try to get a couple quick hits, and prevent the computer players from assembling their high-value hands. And the idea here is, as a game progresses, and of course in Mahjong there are usually 8 complete rounds, and sometimes you have to replay a round if there's a draw, but you have basically 4 east rounds and 4 south rounds, and this game, you will play all 8, and over the course of these 8 rounds, you have to figure out exactly what the right time is to go offensive and try to win the big hand. And a lot of the times, I would say, it seems like for me 50 or 60% of the time, the computer just will stop you before you can gather any momentum. You also, throughout the course of the game, level up with a series of good decisions that you make within a round, or for winning. And even if you lose, I believe if you place second or third, you still get some experience points. Incidentally, I can't show you the entirety of this game, but the game that I recorded here was the best game that I've actually ever had playing this. I made some silly decisions early on, and I actually came back to win a super high value hand in the last round of the match. A couple things that you want to look at here in the interface is that they will actually tell you what the Dora is. So I said in the previous video that the Dora, the lucky tile, is always one tile beyond what is being shown. Here they just tell you in the upper left hand corner of the screen, and they do a nice job here with simulating the automatic mahjong table. In Japan, when you go, the tables are fully automated. You just sort of after a round, you push all of your tiles into a gap in the center of the table, and a new set of shuffle tiles comes up. So that's actually pretty cool here. Just a little bit about the rarity and price of this game. It seems to be pretty rare and actually pretty pricey. I picked it up for I think around $40 just because I needed to play. I just read that this is one of the best games in the Pro Mahjong Kiwame series, so I needed to have it. It is not listed on eBay at the moment, but if you go to the Amazon Marketplace, it's priced used from $20 to $40, so I don't feel so bad. But new, one guy has it at over $1,000, which I can't imagine that there's a market for this game at that price. Another guy has it as of the date of this recording for over $18,000. Now, I think that's absolutely insane. Now that's new, but it's incredibly overpriced, obviously. However, you can find this in the $20 or $40 range, and you like Mahjong, and you know how to play, and you want a challenge, you want a game that is really going to be merciless and kind of kick your butt and really, really make you think on almost a discard by discard basis, definitely pick this one up. I think it is well worth the $40, and it's one of those games that you should probably pick up once you're pretty good at video game Mahjong and you want that challenge. But really, if you are into Mahjong, and I hope this series of videos convinces some of you out there to give it a shot. Once you get into it and you have some skill, definitely look for a game in the Pro Mahjong Kiwame series. Alright, and next up I want to look at some more modern games, at least 2 modern games for the PlayStation 3. And we're going to begin with a game called Janline R, which is an online Mahjong game. And I figured I would show at least one game where you could go online and play for free. There are other games out there. Most are just basically internet games. You have, I think, a game called Ron 2 and Virtual Tenho. There is an online Sega game. But all of those require you to, I believe, have a Japanese credit card to purchase points or betting sticks or something. This one is free to play online. You can find it on the Japanese PSN store. And as you can see here, I have not found 4 opponents. This came out in 2010, and I really, at that point you could find 4 opponents, but I've really not been able to do that lately. But you can always find 1 or 2, and so you have this interface here, and previously all of these blocks were filled in with opponents. Sometimes opponents can come in and join you, and if not, you're kind of stuck with 3 computer-generated players of varying abilities, and the game can be somewhat challenging, but the interface here is not great. You have basically the avatars are not really synced with their hands like we've seen in some of the other games, so you just have to pay attention to the seat wins. So really the guy here who's got the comm with the wand, his hand is the one on the left hand side of the screen, not the top. So not the best interface. As far as the challenge goes, as far as online play goes, it's fun if you do find another player, and even if it's just 2 human players versus 2 skilled computer players, you can still have a good time with it. You can set a time limit, which is important if you play online. So in this case, I think we only have 30 seconds to decide on a discard, and that's actually a pretty lengthy amount of time. Usually the online matches that I've played are set to 15 seconds, which is really actually quite challenging. Some of the other aspects of this game involve actually spending money to improve the look of your avatar. To do that, you would need the Japanese credit card to buy these from the Japanese PSN store. If you don't have that, you can go to a website I believe called Japan Codes and purchase online gift cards that you can use, but not really worth it. It's a good, simple download. I can't remember how much I paid for it at the time. Might have been somewhere around the $10 to $15 range, and this is again one of those titles where you really want to be confident to go online and play against some real people. Again, Janline R series, not highly recommended, but if you like Mahjong, it's worth checking out. And it's a good example of a modern online Mahjong game. Another recent entry into the PlayStation 3 Mahjong game lineup was Mahjong Dream C Club, and this was released in 2012. The idea here is that you are a male player in what I believe is a hostess club. There were other entries into the Dream Club series. I'm not really familiar with them. You're playing against these anime girls, and actually the game is fairly challenging. You kind of have this free roaming camera where you can, I guess the idea is to zoom in on the players and enjoy their various physical features, but you can actually sort of zoom into the board and identify the Dora tile, but you can also just play in the standard view. The audio is a little irritating. The girls kind of chatter at you, and they have these high-pitched, chirpy voices that really make long, extended play sessions here kind of difficult. And that is really it. I mean, we talked about how certain Mahjong games have different focuses. Here, the idea tends to be, I think, that they're trying to simulate the kind of pace of a real 4-person Mahjong game. So the girls will kind of think about what they want to discard. You have this tactile sensation of them and yourself picking up the tile, placing it on the board. The problem here is that it makes for a very, very slow game. And I find that once you kind of get comfortable with the game of Mahjong, you want a really fast-paced game so you can play a number of matches in one sitting, and here you really can't. It is so slow that you can get one game in, and that's it. And there really are no other redeeming qualities here unless you are into previous entries in the Dream Club series, or you like the art style or the anime girls or something like that. But this is one that you can pass on. Yes, it's a new disc-based Mahjong game for the PlayStation 3, which is why I jumped on it. It was pretty expensive from PlayAsia, but there really are better games out there. But I've added it just to show you that this genre continues to exist. There are always new releases for each new console in Japan, usually the most popular console. So in a way, if you look at the consoles with the most Mahjong games, you can kind of, in a sense, judge the market penetration here. But again, if this is only for those who like to collect these games, and even at a price of, I think this was around $80, I would absolutely avoid it, again, unless you're a fan of this particular series.